Hi, all. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. Hope you're having a nice weekend so far. Thank you very much for all of the condolences for my cat Gabe. I really appreciated it. It was really nice to get that lift from everybody. It was a pretty crappy week, as I'm sure you know when you lose a beloved pet or even anyone else. I mean, anybody you love that's in your life for a long time. It's not fun, not easy. So again, thank you for all of the well wishes. It did give me a bump, and I'm grateful. So today I have to be brief. I always say that because I'm on my way to a performance shortly. I'm performing again in Niagara Falls at the Sheraton Hotel, at the outdoor restaurant that they have there, and the weather is really nice. Again, it was cooling off this week. Now I think we're back up to about 80 again, which might not help my voice, but I did get some relief this week from allergies because it was a little cooler. So maybe I'll luck out. Anyway, so this there's two dreams, and I let's see. Sorry, pardon me one second. Right. Yeah, they're definitely related. And as usual, I had to take notes immediately, immediately upon waking, or else they'll vaporize over the course of the day, or I'll forget some of the fun or interesting details. So that's what I have to do. I dictated this into my phone this morning, so I'm going to read it to you now, and then maybe interject with some commentary. Somebody's running some kind of machine outside. Hopefully, it won't be too loud if they resume. So here we go. This is again, these dreams are kind of in a long series of dreams I have about, I guess you could say, the battle between light and darkness. It's a very constant theme in my dreams, and it has been since I was a boy, in one form or another. So here we go. Okay. I had a dream I was fighting the ultimate dark force, but it was presented in the form of a video game, which was interesting. There were many levels to the game. You know how you progress through levels to harder and harder levels. And I had apparently passed through earlier levels until I reached what was shown as the final confrontation. I entered a very large room, like an enormous empty theater space, or maybe more like a conference center room at a large hotel or casino with the very high ceilings. You know, those spaces that they'll have like award ceremonies in, that are just basically a big box, but like the ceilings are really, really high. Except this was just completely empty, except for what I'm about to describe. So it was at least 2 or 3 stories in height. When I entered the room, there was a man off to the left, closer to the dark entity or unfriendly entity that I had to face. The ultimate bad guy of this video game, Light versus Dark, of Light versus Dark. And so there was a man off to the left, closer to the entity, and he was standing in a meditative state, praying. And I believe he was standing on like a shroud or a spread, or even a carpet, but it was more like thinner than a carpet, I think, that had the pentagram symbol, the upright star from a tarot deck on top, which I interpreted as a positive symbol in the dream. Sometimes people see pentacles and they think weird juju, but in tarot, they don't necessarily have a negative connotation, and sometimes it's interpreted as maybe prosperity or wealth or money. But in this dream, it seemed like the fact that it was a star was the most important part. So he was clearly a good guy, and he was praying when I got in the room. And let's see. And at first, it seemed like I would immediately confront the dark force, which was like almost itself like a big box. And then it opened up like an enormous tall box opening from both sides, like opening to expose the center. And And when it opened, it was nearly the height of the room, this conference room, and it took up most of the space in the room too. So it had a intimidating height compared to just my normal height and me being by myself, except for this other man who was there, this mystic apparently. And like I said, so the box opened up and it revealed an interior that looked really like mechanical. I guess in keeping with a video game, there weren't any obvious other things or persons or entities inside of it. Like the box was the entity, and it, like I said, it had a mathematical aspect to it. Like it almost had like display screens on it and information on it, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I didn't really see anything other than that, and I thought that because this other man was there and was sort of already engaged with this thing in some manner, that I would have more time to prepare and watch what was happening. But I didn't. I was immediately thrust into the action. And when the entity opened up what I will call its face, opened up the doors of the box to reveal its interior, I immediately dropped to my knees and I opened up my own shroud with a star on it to stand upon. And then I knew, and when the entity opened up to face me, I intuitively knew that I had to tap the deepest, most pure essence of my soul and open that up entirely, even to the point of what you would call like maybe self-overexposure, in order to engage the entity properly. There was no room for falseness. I had to be my best, truest self in that moment. And then it seemed like some of my soul energy was in the air, as chakra colors. There were chakra colors in the air, like maybe purples, blues, and greens, like the higher chakras that seemed to emanate from me, and seemed to represent the best parts of my soul. And so it was essentially time to begin the confrontation in this, again, remember, video game version of conflict. Oh, I really hope that stops. I don't know if you can hear that drill. Okay. And then again, when the entity opened itself like a box, I could see its strength levels as like meters inside the box, like a display. Again, sort of a technical display. Like if you see video games where people fight against bad guys, they have a power level, and the power level drains as the combat continues, and so does your own power level. And whoever's power level is drained completely first is the person who loses the fight, usually in a video game. So it was just like that. And I could see that its strength levels were represented as various bars of power and percentages of power, just like that. And I attacked. Well, sorry. At first, nothing happened, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to win. So I began with an attack, which was like an aggressive expenditure of energy at the entity. But in the display bars that I could see on the screens, I guess you could say, of the entity, instead of its strength going down when I attacked with hostility, its strength increased, which is surely symbolic, because I was using anger. And then I was given some kind of intuitive guidance by unseen other parties. They gave me insight into the vulnerabilities of the entity, which were then sort of revealed on the large display as well. And I was guided on how best to direct my energy towards the entity in a different way. And I chose the different areas of vulnerability within the entity, maybe 4 or 5 different areas, and I directed energy that way, but more like love energy, positive energy, a different form of energy than my first so-called attack. It wasn't even really like an attack at all. It was different. And you could think, like, there's an analogy to how we think of prayer as well, what it is, in my opinion, which is directed energy, thoughts, positive energy towards the most benevolent outcome, as many of us say. So, and when I did this, then I saw that the entity's power bars were starting to drain because I had changed tactics. I was using a better method, and then I knew that I had a strategy for how to engage it. Oh Jesus! I got one of the squirrels on the window. Erin is here. I already fed her, of course. All right, I'm gonna feed her before she shreds the screen. Okay, so here's my pregnant pause, and then I'll tell you the rest. Okay. Here you go, goofball. Yeah, it's a comedy show over here. Animal comedy show all the time. Plus, Gabe, Shay is here. Are you in the frame? Nope. Hey, Shay. Say hi. Yep. Good job. Say hi, Shay. Say hi. Almost. We'll work on it. So, okay, is that good? All right. So I'm starting to get a strategy here on how to combat this thing. And let's see. So then, once I was directing the positive energy to the negative entity, I felt like I was on my way to victory. But naturally, since it was a trickster, when the entity began to lose the confrontation, then the entire scenario changed. Like basically the rules of the game were changed. And then we were in outer space, naturally. It looked like we were kind of in the upper atmosphere of Earth because the sky was still blue and we were really high up. But our forms had changed. And now that we were up in space, the negative entity was represented as an enormous futuristic spacecraft, while I was a smaller, speedy little ship. But as before, I could see the representation of each of our individual strength represented as power bars on a screen. And I could also see that as a little ship, I now had torpedoes and I think even like a kind of nuclear missile, which is kind of crazy, or bomb to throw at it, in addition to laser beams like in Star Wars. And at first I was really far away and I launched like the nukes at it and they had some effect, but I guess they were love nukes. Oh, we're mixing metaphors here, but blame my dreams. So I launched most of my heavy weapons right away, and the power of the entity greatly diminished, and it seemed to push the confrontation further away from Earth, actually into dark space, which would be a good strategy on my part if I if I planned it. And then all I had left were basically the laser beams. So I had to be very stealthy and dive in really close to the big ship, like sneak almost beneath it and take my shots at it, and then sort of like take evasive maneuvers far away, spinning up and down and all around to basically try to evade its fire. So I was faster and smaller, but it was monstrously big. And this was even adventurous and fun. And again, I felt like I could win even though that entity was much larger. And I saw the bars of its power going down, though mine were going down too. And then I was aware I had volunteer assistance. There were other small ships that came into the picture and helped me to recharge my power as the battle continued. And they may have even joined the effort, which made us stronger together. Then I found a very large ship, which I could plug into and completely recharge myself. It was like, and the entire time this is going on, it was like I was the little ship. Like it wasn't like I was inside the little ship. It's like I was actually the little ship, and the entity was the larger ship, not inside the larger ship. If you follow. And when I recharged myself next to the bigger ship, unfortunately, the entity also figured out how to recharge itself from the same source, and it presented itself as much stronger than it had been before. But I felt this was a lie because my next series of shots actually put holes into the entity. And I was actually able to fly inside of it and continue my attack from inside, which obviously if you breach the outer hull, you can do more damage once you're actually inside. And again, I had the sense I would win, but I wasn't going to quit either way. And that's where that dream ended. And it was kind of a playful dream, you know. You could almost say it was a joyful struggle. And as mentioned, I didn't take it as a burden, but as a challenge. And I maintained my positivity and joy in the face of the conflict, which is really where we're at globally and domestically, like with everything that's going on. Because I meant to say this when I started, that the conflict between light and darkness is sort of built into this dimensional reality, or the physical reality that we experience, and I don't think it ever ends, which is an unsatisfying thing to say, but it has to be balanced. It has to be, and what we've experienced in this world is a lot of darkness for the last decade, I would say, at least, and maybe more depending on your perspective. But this intense darker energy has been dominant for maybe 10 years, and so it's not that we can completely defeat it and eliminate all darkness, and that may not even be desirable. It's that that light reasserts itself and takes its proper place, and we push back the darkness for whatever, a generation or two or three or four or five or 100 years, and we create a better world. We make progress by 2 steps back and three steps forward, which is basically all of human history. And so right now, I think that we are in a global rebalancing. It's slow, but it's happening. It's happening. And so I think the dream speaks to that. And again, if there were no darkness here, then I guess it would just be heaven. There would be no opposition of any kind. But there's an argument as to whether, if you have all light and no darkness, does anything really happen? Or is it just a state of being? Like, maybe that's what it is to be formless, to go from form here to pass over and then become formless once again in the sort of presumed perfection of the Creator, and in which you're more in a state of being than you are in a state of action or doing, as Eckhart Tolle has explained. Okay, so this is already getting longer than I meant it to be, and I have to hurry up so I can get ready for my gig. So in the second dream, I was on a thruway, like an interstate thruway, high-speed thruway, or highway, depending on what word you like. But I was up in the air, so it was actually a skyway. We have one here in Buffalo, and I often think of the one in Pittsburgh because I've been there with, what is it, the three bridges, or the 3-mile stadium, or whatever that's called, the overpass that gets you from one side of Pittsburgh to another. So basically, it's like a several hundred feet high skyway, and the concept of a skyway is that you can get over dense urban areas more quickly by having this throughway connect you that way, instead of like driving through city streets or trying to allocate city streets to be the highway, which can be troublesome. So we have one here in Buffalo, and this is what we were on in the dream. But there weren't a lot of cars on this highway in the dream, and the ones that were parked, the ones that were there were parked, and they were stopped on the side of the road. And everyone was directing their attention to some kind of really bad environmental catastrophe that was down the road, where the thruway actually came down to the ground, from several hundred feet in the air, like basically like an off-ramp. But instead of it being an off-ramp, it just seemed to like slope down to the ground and then just sort of like dissipate into the earth. And then there was no throughway or even a road at all. It was just like open land, and then almost like nothing, just open land at that point. Like there was really no other scenery around, no greenery at all, as I recall. So, and then that trail, I guess you could say, because it was no longer a highway, actually emptied to a sandy area that seemed to meet the ocean. But the imagery wasn't consistent. And then I recognized a very good friend of mine before I went down the thruway. I recognized a very good friend of mine named Mike, who is a very spiritual guy, and with whom I've recorded my last bunch of CDs. So he's been like a collaborative, creative partner, but also an excellent friend, and we share a lot of the same spiritual beliefs, and we have some differences too in what we believe, but we are good at debating them without getting angry at each other. Though I can see where he would get angry with me sometimes because I can be very insistent about my point of view, even though I try not to be too heavy-handed. So anyway, by the way, Mike's 60th birthday is coming up in 2 weeks, so I'm going to be going to a surprise party. I don't think he watches my videos because he's so busy. So there's very little chance he'll see this. Let's see. So let's see. And Mike and I haven't been able to actually really do much recording work lately because he got a relatively newer job in the last couple of years working in the tech industry, and it's been very lucrative for him, whereas most of his life I think you could say he has sacrificed some of his personal wealth and well-being in order to really help other people out. Like, I was always telling him he needed to charge me more for studio time because he wasn't charging enough, in my opinion, even though obviously I could use the money. But so I would tip him often when he refused to charge me more, things like that. And he's kind of done it his whole life. So I'm glad that Mike has this opportunity to finally make some money, maybe towards his retirement. That's what he is hoping for at some point. So anyway, I'm sorry for that tangent, but just so you understand his, maybe whatever his significance might be in the dream, because again, it's another spiritual figure, much like the guy in the first dream who I did not recognize, did not look at all like Mike. Mike has a shaved head, whereas the man in the first dream, I think, had long hair and maybe was dressed even in like kind of robes, darker robes, I think, but I'm not totally sure on that. So anyway, I see. Oh, so if you see or hear my music online anywhere, my solo music, chances are it was co-produced with Mike at his recording studio. So that's a big part. He's been a big part of my life for the last 12 years. And it's hard to imagine how I would have done my CDs, my last 4 or 5, without him. So anyway, he was with a woman, but I wasn't sure if it was his wife, Michelle. Maybe it was his daughter, actually, his daughter, Haley, who's really sweet, too, in his likeness. Either way, I knew I had to go further down the thruway, the highway, than they were planning to go. And I told them so, and then I went down where it met the water. And then somehow everyone who was there, it was not a lot of people, but a handful of people. We were all escorted to another place entirely, and we were shown an area that was sort of like under what's the word I'm looking for? Like the government had come and restricted access to the area because it was there was toxic pollution in an infected area of this water and land. And in the dream, the pollution to me seemed more like a representation of negative energy than actual toxic pollution. But in a sense, it could have been both. And here's where, of course, it gets weird because that's how my dreams go. And then things changed, and I was a metallic silver entity. If you know comic books, the Silver Surfer from Marvel Comics, or you can look it up, the Silver Surfer. I kind of looked like the Silver Surfer. My entire body was shiny metal. And I realized that I could change shape, and I could merge with and manipulate metal. And I seemed to be metal, but apparently I could change my state because I was also able to enter the toxic water and become the water, too. And I saw this from above, so it was like I was watching it and experiencing it at the same time, where when what I did was to get to the pool of water beneath me, it was like a few stories down from where I began, I merged with like a metal pole and traveled down the pole, and then when I got to the bottom, I carried myself to the water, and then my body became the water, and I like merged with the water, which was pretty neat to see, like the shape of my body become nebulous and then just become the water, a part of the water, indistinguishable from the rest of the water. And I explained to some of the other people who were there that I had been sent to help to clean up the water, perhaps by merging with it to help clean it, which would make sense spiritually. Like if you considered yourself a light worker and you encountered bad energy, you may not be able to completely clean. I mean, maybe you could completely clean that energy with your own good energy, but at the minimum, by adding yourself to by bringing your positivity into the negativity, you will change the nature of that entity. So I merged with the negative and towards a positive result. And my goal was to clean that toxic water entirely, though I don't know if I succeeded because I didn't get that much further in the dream. So, I did that. And before I went down into the pool, and I told the people why I was there and I was there to help, they understood and they believed me. And then, like I said, I changed into the water as I merged with it. And that was, so reading from here, that was essentially when the dream ended. And I knew that I was going to work with them to hopefully clean up this toxic area. So it's a similar thing to the first dream in that I was doing what I could to have as large a positive effect on the environment around me, and with the knowing that everything would be okay somehow. And again, perhaps this is because the ongoing struggle between positive and negative, or light and darkness, is in some sense never ending. And it's about reachieving the balance, as currently we seem to be tipped unfavorably towards the dark. And so the efforts were important and not at all in vain, and they would make a difference for the betterment of the world, and they were worth continuing with a sense of duty and purpose, but importantly, joy, as opposed to sadness or a feeling of defeat or drudgery. Because when we let the dark overwhelm our joy, when we don't enjoy life, when we allow the darkness to take that joy from us, then that's when we're really defeated. So even though the struggle can be very challenging, maintaining the light is really critical. I feel very strongly about that. So, and to not see it as drudgery, but to see it as maybe even a privilege, to be able to do that, what we do. So that's for the light workers. And I woke and I knew that prayer is part of the ongoing effort in daily life to help things, as well as generous actions. So those are my dreams. I'll conclude by saying I have continued to be in essentially daily contact with Nina and Ivana in Ukraine, in the north and south of the country. I keep learning more stuff about their lives, and they learn about mine. And they're both very hopeful that they will be able to have a normal life, or as close to normal as you can get, in Ukraine soon. And so I would very much like to encourage your prayers on that front. Again, you can pray for Nina and Ivana specifically, and also for Ukraine generally, because we don't want the world to forget. And really, the squirrel's back on the screen. Really, in a sense, Ukraine is Ukraine is bearing the brunt of what would otherwise be a world war. I can't really think of any other way to put it. We don't have a world war because Ukraine is fighting it for on essentially on behalf of the rest of the world. That's how I feel about it, and that's why I would also like to ask you once again to consider sending a gift card to either one of these women, since they also deal with homeless populations where they are, and there's a shortage of food even among the troop bases for the troops themselves. So I'll put their emails once again in this video after it's uploaded. So thanks for listening, or you can reference my previous video from a couple days back, which I believe is called Help Ukraine Directly or something like that. So thanks for considering it. If you can't afford it, don't worry about it at all. But I know they tell me every day that it matters to them to know that others are praying and thinking of them. And I can't even pretend to have any sense of what it would be like to be them in that war. And I just pray that they stay safe. So, and that it ends soon. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Talk to you soon.